Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are diving into one of Angular's most fascinating lifecycle hooks, ngOnChanges. Whether you have been using Angular for a while or you are just beginning to master component lifecycle hooks, understanding ngOnChanges is key to making your applications smarter and more efficient. So if you have ever wondered how to react to changes in your components inputs and what happens under the hood in Angular 18, stick around. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to leverage ngOnChanges to make your components more dynamic and responsive. Alright, so let's get right into it. Here we have a simple Angular component setup in Angular 18. I want to show you exactly how the ngOnChanges lifecycle hook works, how you can use it, and why it matters. So to start off, let's talk briefly about what ngOnChanges is. ngOnChanges is a lifecycle hook called by Angular whenever there is a change to one of the component's input properties. This makes it perfect for scenarios where you need to perform an action whenever an input property changes. So this is especially useful in child components that rely on the new data from a parent component. Now let's take a look at an example. We are going to create a new component step by step and gradually add ngOnChanges to see how it works. First, let's create a new component called child component. So open a new terminal in the root directory of your project and run this command ng generate c for component and type child. Press enter. This would generate this component in the app folder inside the child folder. So open this child component.ts file. First, we need to import the necessary modules. So let's import the input on changes and SimpleChanges. Okay. Next, we want this component to receive data from a parent component. So we will add an input property called data. So let's initialize it with an empty string @input and call that data of type string is equal to empty string. Save it. Alright, we now have a basic child component that accepts an input called data. But what if we want to react whenever this data changes? So that's where ngOnChanges comes in. So let's implement ngOnChanges to see how it works. So for that, we have to implement a lifecycle hook method that is onChanges. So we already have imported this class, so we are good to go. Here we need to implement this function ngOnChanges, and you can see we are getting the parameter changes and we have given it the type SimpleChanges. This lifecycle hook gets triggered whenever the data input changes. The changes parameter provides details about changes to our input properties. Now let's talk a bit more about SimpleChanges. We use SimpleChanges as the type for the parameter in ngOnChanges because it provides a structured way to access the changes made to input properties. It gives us details like previous value, current value, and whether it's the first change. By using SimpleChanges class as type, we gain a clear and type-safe methods to understand how our input properties are evolving, which can be crucial for writing robust conditional logic that responds appropriately to each change. So for example, consider this code. Here I will add if condition if changes and data. If there is a property with the name data in the changes object, and so if this specific input was updated, then this property would exist in this object. If the value in this property is not updated, then this property would not exist in this changes object. Okay. So once we are sure that the data was changed, we can check if changes of data property is first change. Okay. So if this was changed for the first time, then we want to console.log previous value and changes data. We will get the previous value. You can see when I type, it shows me the suggestions. So that is the important thing of SimpleChanges type that we used here. So that is the main benefit of using it. You don't have to remember what we have available in this changes object. You can just get the idea from these suggestions and you can use whatever you need. So I need previous value here, so just select that, and after that I need a second console.log with current value, that would be changes data and dot current value. Okay, save it. So in this example, SimpleChanges helps us ensure type safety by providing well-defined properties such as previous value and current value, and we can also check if the change is the first change using isFirstChange function. This type safety helps prevent runtime errors and makes the code more predictable and easier to maintain. Now let's test it out by modifying the data property from the parent component. But for that we have to use this child component in the parent component, that is app.component.html. So this Angular app is currently running in my browser, but there is a default code that was generated by the CLI. So I'm just going to remove that all, and in the app.component.ts I need to import my child component in the imports array. As we are using standalone component, so we don't need any specific module to declare this component. We just can directly add it in the imports array. So let's do that. Child component. Now this component is available to use in the HTML. So let's add the component app-child and save it. Currently you can see child works text is coming from the app child, and in the child HTML let's display our text that we're getting from the parent, that is data. Okay, this data is empty currently because we did not pass anything from the parent HTML. So in the app child, let's pass the data is equal to parent data. We have to define this property in our component class, so let's do that. Here I will define it. Parent data is initial data. Save it. Okay, so for the first time you will see this data in the child component, and let me show you the inspect element. So if you reload it, currently there is no data changed yet. So we will now intentionally change this data. That will trigger the ngOnChanges inside the child component. So for that I'm going to add a button here. That would be button tag, text would be change data, and in the button tag I will add the register the click event, so that would call the change data. Now we have to define this function in the app.component.ts, so let's do that. Change data, and here we will access the parent data and we will update it with this text, updated data at, and concatenate it with new date to local time string. Okay, so now every time we click the button, the parent data changes, which means ngOnChanges in the child component gets triggered. So every time we call this function, this will generate a unique new updated string because of the date function that we're using here. So let's open up the console and take a look. So this is the initial data. Currently there are no logs, but when you click on this, you can see that data was updated in the child, and in the console logs we can see previous value was initial data and the current value is this that we just added. Let me click on it once again. So now I clicked on that, and again I see the logs in the console, and it is showing the previous value, also the current value. So you can see that ngOnChanges hook logged these changes every time we clicked the button. The SimpleChanges object gives us useful information like the previous value, current value, and whether it's the first change. So this can be super helpful when we need to execute logic based on what exactly has changed. So you might have a question that why does this matter? There are few common use cases for ngOnChanges, like data validation, where maybe you want to validate incoming data before you see it in your component, or you may want conditional logic in your component. You might want to perform different actions depending on how the data has changed, like resetting certain states. Or another use case is triggering external processes. For example, you could start an animation or trigger a service call when data updates. Have you ever faced a scenario where you needed to respond to input changes dynamically? Drop a comment below and share your experiences. I would love to hear how you have solved those challenges. And there you have it. a quick but detailed dive into ngOnChanges in Angular 18. Hopefully, you can now see how powerful and useful this lifecycle hook can be in your projects. If you found this video helpful, then please give it a thumbs up. It really helps support the channel and lets me know what kind of content you enjoy. And hey, if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and make sure to click the bell icon so you never miss out on future Angular tutorials. Also, if you have questions, feedback, or suggestions for the future topics, drop them in the comments. I read every single one of them. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Keep coding and stay awesome.